Yo, what's good, everybody? It's Fright Delight, and I know what you're thinking. Fright Delight with a double upload in the same day? Hell yeah. I had to slide y'all one more for being inactive for over an entire year. I've been gone for so long, another channel damn near took my name. The movie I'm talking about today may seem a little random, but I wanted to give you guys my thoughts and opinions on a newer movie rather than the nostalgia binge I was going to take you guys on. It's nice to look back at some old gems, but I think it's also good to stay updated on what horror movies are coming out today too. So, yo, what's good, everybody? It's Fright Delight. I'm coming to y'all straight from my editing laptop. I just came to say that I have to renege on that statement. I'm gonna definitely have to put you guys on a nostalgia binge. Only for the simple fact that I've come to realize that there's people out in this world who don't watch movies below 2010. And for that reason alone, I'm gonna have to put you guys on some older movies after this one. This may be the last 2024 movie y'all see from me for a minute. But if you have any movies below 2010 that you want to recommend, go ahead and put that in the comments below. But I'm gonna catch y'all later. Enjoy the movie. Peace. Without further ado, here's Late Night with the Devil. The movie's about a talk show going horribly wrong as Jack Delroys' desperate attempt to become the #1 network on TV causes him to invite a supposed possessed child on during a live broadcast. Now, to jump right in, I think this is a creative ass way to do a horror movie. A found footage horror movie at that. In a world where these types of movies are a dime a dozen, this movie really stands out, making sure that the timeline we're watching this in feel real. The story the main character goes through about what you're willing to sacrifice to make it to the top is a story we can all relate to in some capacity. I thought it was interesting how they use different editing techniques to show us different sides of the broadcast. On one side, you see the show play as a regular 70s era talk show. Then during the commercial breaks, we cut to the behind the scenes footage filmed in black and white to give us a little bit more insight on the different characters, thoughts, and feelings that the audience isn't aware of before cutting to a regular broadcast. Even towards the end of the movie, it's filmed in a high resolution format, letting you know that we're looking at Jack's personal perspective. Speaking of the end, I seen online that there was some mixed feelings about the CGI used on Lily, the possessed girl. While it's over the top, honestly, I thought it was really cool to have her fucking head split open, but I'm getting ahead of myself. If you haven't been here before, I'm gonna recap the movie, give my thoughts and opinions in between, and then end it with a tier rating that we'll keep track of throughout the year. Now let's stop playing and get to it. So the movie starts off with 9 fucking intro cards before the actual film begins. It's like that one scene in Family Guy when Peter couldn't figure out when the movie starts.
Oh, this guy's in trouble. Can't wait to hear his story. Oh, come on!
When it officially begins, the movie provides a documentary-style explanation of the life of Jack Delroy, beginning from the start of his fame up until his return after the death of his wife. During the docu-style explanation, we learn that she's passed from lung cancer and hasn't smoked once in her life. We also learn that Jack goes to the Grove, which is a rabbit hole in itself that will take way too long for me to get into. But long story short, the Bohemian Rhapsody? The Bohemian Grove is a place where the elites go to do rituals and weird shit like that. It's also said that they can make or break careers, which is very important since Jack is desperate to break past Carson as the #1 talk show on cable. As the explanation continues, we see Jack and his producer do more controversial bits to garner views, but almost does the opposite as ratings continue to fall. This leads him to do an all or nothing bit on Halloween night called, you guessed it, Late Night with the Devil. The ingenuity in this movie is fucking amazing. It opens up like a real talk show from the 70s, introducing the rest of the characters like Christou, you gotta say it like that, Christou, the psychic. You got Carmichael the skeptic, and you got June the demonic doctor. She's a parapsychologist or some shit like that. They might be a thing in real life. I've never looked into it, but I'm just gonna call her a demon doctor. Gus the hype man gets the crowd ready for Mr. Delroy himself. He scares Gus into needing a new pair of drawers before he talks to the live audience about Sweet Sweet. Pretty much the national ratings period when the viewership of each show during this time will be analyzed and used to negotiate ad revenue. He thanks the audience for staying with him all this time and thanks his day one Gus for being there with him after his wife passed. Now he continues to the show, introducing the first segment with Christou, the psychic. I'm not gonna lie, he did make it seem like he was phony by the way he came across. The man guessed about 4 different names before he came to one conclusion, and then he still doesn't get it right. Yeah, the crowd starts to have disbelief in Christou when the person he supposedly sensed in the room happened to still be alive and well, booed up with the audience member's neighbor. Christou explains that his abilities, they work like a radio, and sometimes the frequency is really strong, and sometimes it's really scrambled. Like my words. Really scrambled, which makes it hard for him to understand the spirits. He redeems himself by speaking with the mother and daughter about someone they lost who was important to him. He calls out Papa, which was what the deceased husband called his bear when he was younger. This brings the lady in tears, the audience applauds, Him and Delroy's about to close the segment out, cutting the commercial before he's able to. Chris Stu starts to have an intense rush, coursing throughout his body, and a name comes to him. Also describes a wedding ring on an unmarried man. Nobody seems to know of many. Then the lights go in and out before she disappears from his frequency and they cut the commercial. These in-between takes, they give you a real idea of what's going on, and it's ingenious as fuck. Like, I don't want to go on too long, but I just want to say I appreciate movies like this and Talk to Me. I'm sure there's others out there, but these really brought back a creative flame to a dying subgenre, which was the paranormal. I'm here for it. During the behind the scenes footage, we see Chris Stu still shaking up from earlier, pressured to go on by the producer, while Gus is telling Jack how spooked the crew's getting. Jack dismisses him speaking to Leo, the producer, about how he liked the bit where the light goes in and out, but realized he wasn't the one to do it. While they talk about producers and ratings, there's a quick, subtle, like hella subtle visual of Jack's wife in the mirror that I didn't even catch on my first watch. I kind of got goosebumps from it because ghosts in mirrors always spook my eye just a little bit. We're back on air as the next guest is introduced. He's a retired magician that became part of a skeptics group targeted against the paranormal. This man has a Sheldon level of disrespect, like Sheldon from Big Bang Theory. Like, he means well, but he's an asshole at the same time. His whole goal is to expose people that can supposedly talk to spirits and charge for their services. He even has $100,000 on the line for anybody with convincing evidence of the paranormal. He obviously doesn't believe Chris Stu's act, poking holes in his performance. Chris Stu doesn't like the way Car's coming off, throwing water in his face, storming off. But before he's able to, Jack reveals that Minnie was a private nickname for his wife. Car gets more frustrated, telling him don't fall for the bait, while increasing the amount of money he's willing to write out, which is $500,000. Yeah, shit. For $500,000, nigga, I'm possessed. Chris Stu told him exactly what he thought about that $500,000 by throwing up black glue on his Versace jacket before cutting the commercial. Now, behind the scenes, they help him offset, get him the medical attention, while Carr is still unbelieving, expressing to Jack that he thinks this is fake to boost his ratings. Then talks about some orgies at the Grove that he wants to get into. They get back on air assuring everyone that Chris Stu was fine before moving on to what Jack believes will make Carr write that check for the first time, and that's Lily. She was the sole survivor of a demonic cult that breeds kids for human sacrifice. Her caretaker is June, which is used like a key to unlock the darkness hiding within Lily. They get introduced, they have brief dialogue. Lily expresses how sad she feels about the death of his wife and that he's gonna be very famous soon, which kind of ties into the ending a bit. Now, after they cut the commercial again, Jack is about to prep for the next segment. Meanwhile, Lily says,
"Don't I already look pretty, Jack?"
Hell no!
I think Lily's mimicking Jack's wife in this scene, although I could be completely wrong. That's just what it sounds like to me. June pulls aside Jack to explain to him how much of a bad idea she thinks this is, but with the thought of ratings in his mind, he convinces her to follow through with the next segment. Before they go back on air, Jack is hit with some more bad news that Chris Stu has died on the way to the hospital. And with that on his mind, he goes back on air to discuss with June about her doctorate degree in the paranormal. Carr couldn't wait to throw some bows in there, and the first thing he does is cook her degree.
It so happens I have a PhD in the subject.
From the University of Hogwash, if I'm not mistaken.
During the show, it's explained that one of the items taken was a dagger from the Diablo house used for a sacrificial ceremony. It doesn't take long for Carmichael to start playing with the shit, unable to take anything June says serious. This may be a hot take, but besides David Dasterman, I'm sorry if I butchered the fuck out that name, Ian Bliss as Carmichael has the second best performance in the film. He plays the asshole perfectly, but also has enough room for him to be likable. It's the arrogance and almost over-the-top skepticism that make you not like him, but you see why he has that because of his great knowledge of hypnosis. And the stuff he's able to do in the third half is wilder than worm puss. Now, let me stop while I'm ahead. Lily says that she calls the thing inside her Mr. Wriggles, and around this time, sharp sounds start to grow louder and louder, causing some glass cups to shatter. It's a very quick scene, but if you pause it, you see Jack's wife again. There's something for sure he's hiding that we'll find out later. But to solve what's going on right now, Carr unplugs the loud ass sounds coming from the PA system. Lily says it was Mr. Wriggles, leading Jack to ask if it was okay for Mr. Wriggles to be on the show. Lily agrees equally and June agrees reluctantly. And this takes us to another commercial, low-key in a very funny way.
We attempt to commune with the devil, but not before a word from our sponsors.
Honestly, I feel like if Jesus himself came down to do a 1-hour interview, a sponsor would still have to be mentioned in some way. Jesus, brought to you by Disney. Behind the scenes, June is pissed at Jack, and later Gus is pleading with him too not to go through with the summoning of a demon through Lily. But none of that gets to Jack, and the only thing that's on his mind right now is the show at this point. point. They get back on air not too long after, opening up with June summoning Mr. Wriggles. At first, it's startled by the bright lights and the amount of people, but it doesn't take too long for that chaotic demon talk to start happening. June doesn't play that and smacks the dog shit out of her, then says a little prayer. It looks like that did the trick after some levitation in the nosebleed. While that takes into commercial, behind the scenes, they console Lily back there to make sure she's okay. Carmichael learns of Chris Stew's death, making him a little uneasy, but it's not too much, and Jack is told by the producer that the ratings are up and shares can be as high as ever. Even with all the excitement, Jack is starting to get a little spooked by the way Lily sounded like his wife earlier, or at least towards the end of the segment. But his producer ain't really trying to hear that shit, especially when the views are going in. So Jack goes back out there and lets the audience in person and the audience at home know that Lily's okay. He lets Carmichael take the floor to explain away what they just seen. Car thinks June blatantly hypnotized Lily, getting boos from everyone in the crowd. Everyone, including me, just thought he didn't want to part with that check until Jack gave him 5 minutes to prove himself. He uses Gus as a volunteer to do his hypnosis act, telling him and everyone around to focus on his clock. He snaps his fingers, then asks Gus about his phobia of worms. Shaking a bit, Gus starts to take off his Balenciaga coat, getting hot and itchy like my balls after a long hot day. Carr mentions that Gus has a cut on his neck, leading to this deranged ass scene where he starts to pull worms out of his neck like I pulled the last chip out of a fucking bag. He starts to freak out, screaming, "They're inside me!" As he rips his goddamn stomach open. He starts to turn into a worm like Jeff Goldblum turned into a goddamn fly, and even Carr's starting to freak out, saying this wasn't supposed to happen, before yelling, "Dreamer, here, awake," snapping everyone out the train. Now, in disbelief at what just happened, Jack gets the videotape and guys replay what pretty much what just happened. The tape shows everything that happened with one main difference. Carmichael was explaining what was happening to Gus instead of him actually going through it. I can see why this dude was an arrogant asshole throughout the movie, because if you can make people see some shit like that, it would really be hard to believe any paranormal claims without any real skepticism. But with that logic running the footage back, with a little pushback from June, they replay the tapes of Lily's possession and nothing changes for the most part. They freeze frame bit by bit until they see Jack's wife through the replay, and also we the viewers see her hand in the present time very briefly before Carr starts to deny everything, telling Jack that he set up everything because of his dying rating, and the man goes on and on and on. He don't even stop when he sees Lily crying, right? He just continues to go. But after what he just did, I can't really blame him. Now, at this point, you either love her or hate her. Lily has some sort of electric energy coming out her body, which then splits her face in two. I'm in the middle in this team, but I lean more on the lovey side. Even though you kill any thought of this movie being scary to me, I thought it was a real cool design. And what she does, my man does, is disrespectful as hell, making an example out of his ass real quick. June tries to do a prayer too, but get choked and pretty much capped off too. I think Jack got tossed somewhere, as you got Carmichael speechless, face to face with the demon, and the last thing he does is pull out the check before he gets melted alive. After that, it cuts to Jack and his perspective. The movie does exactly what it wants to do by filming with an updated lens. I'm not familiar with cameras, so if anybody knows what this was filming, please let me know in the comments below. We see him go through different segments from the previous shows he's done. There's a lady that pulls this giant worm out of a bucket that looks like a double-sided dildo. Then not too long after, some other imagery and him signing a new deal with UBC, Jack gets greeted with the Owl of the Grove, and it's pretty much telling him to drink the elixir or some shit, whatever the fuck's in that cup. And you have this dude behind him, and the shit just took me out the movie because the shit was funny as hell. The way Buddy was like, "Ah, ah." But this is turning into a dark comedy now. This leads us to a very interesting part of the movie to me. You got his wife laying in bed speaking with him, saying he got what he wanted, but he had to pay a price. The more dialogue suggests that the price he had to pay was his wife. You even see that in the way he has to use the dagger on her. So what most likely happened was that he had used the ritual at the Grove to rise to fame. Granted, it wasn't higher ratings than Carson, but a sacrifice still had to be made. They used his wife, which is why she passed away due to lung cancer without even smoked once in her life. After sacrificing his wife again, he gets sent back to the present, being Lily the one he actually stabbed. And the camera pans away and he says, "Dreamer, here, await," ending the movie. Damn, Jack. Ain't no getting up from this one. I'm not gonna lie though, I'm really torn on this because on one hand, this is a really cool, aesthetically pleasing movie with 70s style set design and film grain. I really like the characters and the story about what you're willing to sacrifice to get what you want. It really sticks with me because I just talked to my uncle about this. No matter what you want in life is gonna require a sacrifice. And the bigger the reward, the greater the sacrifice gonna be. Granted, it's not gonna be on no kill your wife shit, but a sacrifice is a sacrifice. There is no point in this film where I felt like I was scared. The movie also felt like a longer version of a VHS set. What saves this movie from being the cookie cutter possession film is the creativeness behind the camera. The different editing techniques and the different film grain transitions make this a well-made movie with an overdone premise. With that being said, I'll have to put this movie in spooky. And the only reason I'm not putting it in higher is because as a horror movie, the main point, at least to me, is to either scare, shock, or disturb me. And this movie did none of those things. It wasn't a boring movie. It was just a premise that's been done countless times and I'm already desensitized to. It's really filmed extremely creatively. I can't say that enough. For my next ranking, if I was trying to survive the night with Jack as the final survivor, I'd be in the almost but still dead category. I'd make it all the way to the end, probably get taken out just like Gus or some shit like that. Probably worse. Nah, fuck that. I'm gonna get carried to Survivor, now that I think about it. Everybody in that bit had a chance to run, and most of the named characters stayed behind. I would not be one of those people. Shit, I would have been out of there faster than a hen of fart spray with Febreze. Alright guys, those are my thoughts on the 2023 film, Late Night with the Devil. If you made it to the end of the video, thank you so much for making it this far. Let me know what you thought about Late Night with the Devil, even if you disagree with me, in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video and have any movies that you want me to cover in the future, please put them in the comments below as well. Please like and subscribe too to see more. And it's been real, fellas. I appreciate y'all coming to a Fright Delight. I'll catch y'all later. Peace.